are many like us out there as well, and that is something.
Hey, welcome back to ScreenCrush. I'm Ryan Airy, and this is all of the Easter eggs, references, and little things you might have missed in The Bad Batch, Episode 10, Retrieval, also known as the one where they do Temple of Doom. Now, I know it seems like a lot doesn't happen in this episode, but when you place it in context, it's actually a crucial stepping stone that takes us from the Clone Wars to the Galactic Civil War, and finally to the rise of the First Order. And we're going to explain how in just a bit. Now, Dave Filoni pitched this Bad Batch show initially as essentially the A-Team in space.
That moderately successful 2010 film with Bradley Cooper and Liam Neeson?
How's your day going? This is not gonna taste good.
No, that mildly successful 2010 film was a remake of the wildly successful 1980s TV series. The premise of that show was that a group of Vietnam veterans were framed for a crime they didn't commit, so they go around committing good deeds for hire, using their specialty skills for the betterment of the downtrodden people around America.
Wow, this show really is the A-Team, but in space.
Yes, and episodes like this show the kind of good that the Bad Batch can do around the galaxy. Right now, the team is still having a kind of identity crisis. They don't like the Empire, but they're not exactly fighting against it. Their attitude is more like Luke's in A New Hope.
It's not that I like the Empire, I hate it, but there's nothing I can do about it right now.
Now, I do think that they will eventually get drawn into the galactic conflict when it involves their clone brothers. They do still care about the clones that serve under the Empire. Notice they always use the stun setting on their blasters when they fight other clones. But this episode gave us an indication that the Bad Batch may start doing good simply for the sake of being good.
The Empire's not the only threat. We've seen so many in the galaxy, like Mako.
Here, they helped a group of children living under financial slavery to a Fagin-type character in a mine.
What's a Fagin?
Fagin is a character in Oliver Twist who basically controlled a group of street orphans that were a network of pickpockets across London.
Thank you, sir.
Shut up and drink your gin!
Oh, like an Oliver and Company.
Exactly, so back to this episode. The Bad Batch is working to repair this speeder, which has these roll bars on top, kind of like a dune buggy. Very cool design detail. And I gotta tell you, speeder bikes are my favorite Star Wars vehicles, and I actually think this is the first time we've seen these models. If I'm wrong, please let me know down in the comments. So, Wrecker is acting like a big baby.
And I'm starving!
Yeah, that's annoying.
Nah, at least he has a personality. He's actually my favorite member of the Bad Batch. And this line...
We're wasting our time!
I mean, look, Filoni is such a referential Star Wars geek that he had to have been making a nod to this.
We're wasting our time.
Then Omega realizes that they do have a way to track their ship.
Not the ship. I mean, we can track Gonki.
And this is one thing that Omega is great for on this team. She is the only person who would have even thought of Gonki because she has developed an emotional connection to this power droid. To everyone else, it's just a droid that doesn't work. Remember, in the past, Wrecker used it for curling. The droid was just hardware to them. But Omega bonded with it. She gave it a name and said that she didn't mind that he was defective.
Don't worry, we're defective too.
And now, because of Omega, everybody has come to feel affection for it.
It's just a beat-up old battery.
Not to us.
Then we meet this episode's person in need, a thief named Benny. He's a wage slave to an Ipsian miner named Mako. Now later, Benny gives us some cool backstory on this place.
Techno-Union ran this mine during the war, but Mako took over when they were forced out.
And this is actually the kind of tasty detail that I really love in my Star Wars, because it connects to the Clone Wars, the Mandalorian, and the sequel trilogy, and also this.
Somehow Palpatine returned.
So how?
Okay, so groups in Star Wars are always organized into guilds, kind of like in medieval society. Cal Kestis in Fallen Order works for the Scrapper Guild, for instance. And we all know the Bounty Hunter Guild.
They just don't want to pay guild rates.
These are essentially space unions, but there are also space conglomerates. For instance, the Trade Federation are like space teamsters controlling shipping on hyperspace lanes, and the Techno-Union are a bunch of tech and mining companies that basically formed a cartel. They were one of the founders of the separatist movement, but also somehow stayed neutral in the Clone Wars. In fact, the mining facility on Mustafar, where Anakin fought Obi-Wan, was a Techno-Union facility, and we can see design similarities in this episode with the catwalks and the bridges. Anyways, the reason we never heard of these groups in the original trilogy is because the Empire slowly dissolved them or absorbed them. For instance, we saw a banking clan senator a couple episodes ago. Now that's a former separatist who has now turned into a mouthpiece for the Empire.
One comprised of the people who fight for the people.
Following the end of the Clone Wars, groups like the Techno-Union were wiped out or weakened, and this left a power vacuum. So the planets in the outer rim of the galaxy were the last strongholds of the Separatists in the Clone Wars, and we saw this in the final season of the Clone Wars and in Revenge of the Sith. But the Empire never fully took over these outer rim planets, leaving them open for criminal cartels like the Hutts or Crimson Dawn to expand their influence. And, following the defeat of the Empire, the New Republic never fully took over the outer rim either. It's why we still see Imperial remnants in The Mandalorian, and why Carson Teva was was so worried.
There's something going on out here. They need to be stopped before it's too late.
And all of this leads into the rise of the First Order that we saw in the sequel trilogy, because the First Order was able to take advantage of this power vacuum in the Outer Rim and then rebuild their empire from there. But in this particular time period of the Bad Batch, this lack of order has allowed crime lords to take advantage of these orphans. We also saw this in Solo, with Lady Proxima running Corellia on the backs of kids like Han and Kira, and in this episode it's Mako using child labor in a mine.
And they call it a mine! A mine!
Anyways, Benny doesn't just work for Mako, he hero worships him.
Mako's kept us in business. He said with more time and more digging, we're bound to reach better Ipsium soon.
But usually when people are enslaved in Star Wars, they're literally enslaved, chained up, or with like Suicide Squad chips in their heads.
Any attempt to escape,
And they blow you up. Boom!
Mako has managed to enslave these kids without hardly any violence, although having repurposed Techno-Union droids as enforcers helps intimidate the kids. And by the way, that's another aspect of the post-Clone Wars era that makes this area of space very unruly. Earlier in this season, we saw former separatists using old droid armies to become warlords of their worlds to defy Imperial rule. And then we'll see this pattern continue in The Mandalorian, where local gangsters are using ATSTs to suppress local populations. So the Bad Batch forces Benny to help them find their ship, which they access by crawling down a smokestack. Hope they don't find a clone of Spider-Man down there. Right? Never mind. So several episodes this season have been homages to the cinema of the 70s and 80s that George Lucas had a hand in crafting. We had the Fee Genoa episode that was modeled after Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, the political intrigue of All the President's Men.
Follow the money. $25,000 in a brown paper bag. Follow the money.
And this episode draws a bit from the plot of Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, when evil priests kidnapped all the children in a village and forced them into slavery to benefit Kalima. Except the god in this case is the glowing god of capitalism, and the underclass is going to rise.
Oh, so it's like the A-Team is in the Temple of Doom.
Yeah, that would have been awesome, right? And there's also a rope bridge like in Temple of Doom. And by the way, everyone, if you like what we do here and you want to support our channel, we have a merch store. Every month at shopzeroedition.com we have a new shirt, and this month it's the Doug Father.
I don't make any money from this. Do not buy or support this product.
The point of the merch store really does help out our channel. We have lots of other fun tees for you to choose from. Now back to what I was saying. So Benny goes to the cafeteria to swipe a key card. And this is where we really see the hardships that Mako puts these kids through. Benny's eyes have a sunken, starved look to them. He devours the Batch's ration bar when he's on the ship. And Mako makes everybody compete for a bowl of soup, while he gorges on food and makes them wait.
They can wait till I'm good and ready.
Now Tech points out that his system, where the top earner gets rewarded, is also used by the Empire.
Mako appears to be using his power and means as leverage over his workers. It is a similar tactic used by the Empire.
And we saw the Empire use this same system in the prison episodes of Andor, where Cassian and other prisoners are forced into manual labor. If you get last place, you get shocked.
Last place gets fried.
And in first place, you get food.
Winner gets taste with their food. Top table wins flavor.
But both Andor and the Bad Batch do a great idea of showing us societies that are forced to remain small. So small that even the smallest reward seems enormous.
You play against all the other tables in this room. I play against all the other rooms.
While some of you have been working hard this quarter, others continue to fall short.
And later, Omega tries to tell Benny that he doesn't have to stay here and the galaxy is a big place.
You can be whatever you want. It's a big galaxy. You don't have to stay here.
The episode does use Benny's relationship with Mako to contrast Omega and the Bad Batch. And the key line of the episode is,
besides, I can't leave. This is my home. It's what I know.
Can't go back out there. This is the only life I know.
This line connects Benny and Omega. See, Benny only knows the life of a miner, but Omega also only knows the life of a vagabond clone. Last episode, she came to terms with the idea that she does not have a permanent home. So in many ways, she is longing for the kind of life that Benny has. It may be slave wages, but at least it's consistent. But Omega wins him over when she offers him her field ration, also indicated by the Arabesh letters on the package. Omega then finds proof that the Ipsium is not degraded and that Mako is a big fat phony crook, just in time for her to be captured. Oh, and by the way, the technology in this control room is very similar to the Techno-Union stronghold we saw back in the Clone Wars episode A Distant Echo, which introduced the Bad Batch into Star Wars. So the Arabesh on the readout here says Ipsium Price Index, and you can see that the price of Ipsium is going up, up, up in the chart, and that is the reason that Sid sent them to this planet in the first place. So when Benny confronts Mako with this proof, Drake backs him up, which actually legitimizes the claim, because Drake, as the top earner, would have the most to lose if Mako is out of power, and also because Drake is your mom. Bad guys guy falls off the bridge to his death, very Temple of Doom. And at the end of this episode, Bendy is eating a melee run fruit, which we've seen in Rebels, Book of Boba Fett, pretty much anywhere Star Wars fruits are sold. And so the Bad Batch saves the day, and more importantly, Omega has seen what can happen to you if you stay too long in one place. You get enslaved by a cybernetic pig robber baron.
I guess the real Ipsy in mine was the friends we made along the way.
Right you are, high five. Well guys, that's all the Easter eggs we found, but if you found any, let me know in the comments below or at me on Twitter. And if it's your first time here, please subscribe, smash that bell for alerts. For ScreenCrush, I'm Ryan Airy.